Hello, everyone. I don't think any of you have been in this particular building before. Um, we've had to scramble a little bit because, as you all know, it has been a very stormy couple of days here at Dunrovin and here in the Missoula area. In fact, as everybody knows, the Hellgate osprey's nest has had a real tragedy with two of the eggs damaged. Let's hope that at least one of them hatches this year. What a horrible event last night for the osprey at Hellgate. But I'm not going to be talking about the osprey today. In fact, I'm not going to be talking about a lot of things Dunrovin. Instead, I have a guest. And my guest is somebody I'm sure you will recognize immediately upon seeing him. He's not here quite yet. I expect him to knock at any time and to welcome him to Dunrovin. He's never been here before, but I hope he'll become a regular. He's certainly a favorite of mine. So let's see if he gets here. Aha, there is the door. Hello, hello, hello.
Hello. Sorry I'm late to the ranch. I ran all I could to get here.
You ran in the rain, you ran?
No, that's the easiest way to get anywhere. Just running.
Running in the rain. Without raincoat, you have your nice jacket on. Did you put your raincoat on the foyer?
Yes, I did.
Oh, good. And you have your suitcase.
Well, I brought the suitcase and I brought some chocolates because life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get.
Oh, my goodness. Look at all those chocolates. And I could really have one?
Absolutely.
Oh, my goodness. These look terrific. Thank you.
Have you ever met a chocolate you don't like?
No, I never have. I think of chocolate as the fourth food group.
Mama said there's no such thing as a bad chocolate.
Yeah, there isn't. Well, my goodness, this is so delightful to have you. Where did you come from today?
Well, I just was down south in the Bitterroot Valley, not too far.
Yeah.
People think I live still in Greenbow, Alabama, but that's the original home. But you know, life changes, and you just keep moving on. And here I am.
So let's have a seat here.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, hello.
So I think everybody knows who I'm talking to. He's walked right out of the pages of a book and right off the silver screen.
Mama said, Forrest, don't be talking to strangers without introducing yourself proper at the beginning. So
maybe we should introduce ourselves.
Yes.
All right. And you are?
My name's Forrest Gump, and people call me Forrest Gump.
And I'm Suzanne Miller. People call me Miss Suzanne Miller.
Well, it's a pleasure and honor to be here at Dunrovin today.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
So how long have you been Forrest Gump?
Well, I've been Forrest for a long time.
A long time.
And people sometimes think that it's a true story. But what happened was a man named Winston Groom wrote a book called Forrest Gump, and Winston Groom lives in Alabama, and he wrote the story about Forrest, and Forrest had this incredible life, and he did say life is like a box of chocolates in the movie or in the book, but he also did a whole lot of other adventurous things. Well, then Hollywood gets a hold of the book, and a screenplay gets written, and a fellow named Eric Roth, he was the person who wrote the screenplay, and they made the story a little bit kinder and gentler than what the book was all about. And so most people don't know about the book, when Winston Groom as the original inventor of Forrest Gump, and then the movie came out, and that was back in 1994. Of course, the screenplay and the production of it happened before that. So really in the early 90s, Forrest Gump was born, the idea, and they hired an extremely handsome actor to play the movie. They did. I can't recall what his name is.
Oh, Tommy something.
Yes,
Tommy Hawk?
Hanks.
Tommy Hanks.
No, Hawks and Osprey live here.
Oh, it was Tom Hanks.
Hanks,
Tom
right.
Hanks.
That's
yes.
right.
In fact, wasn't that one of his first big parts in a movie?
Well, no, he had a long career before that. Now, it was really, it's probably the most famous, and we look back 20 years later, it's probably one of his most famous roles, but the year before, he had won the Academy Award for a movie called Philadelphia.
Philadelphia, I remember it well.
And then before that, he made Joe and the Volcano, and Turner and Hooch, and The Money Pit, and Big. So he had done quite a few movies. None of them were really breakout star movies, but he had a nice acting career going.
Well, is there another person behind this character? Who might that person be?
There is, and my name's Steve Weber, and I back in 1980, the first time I ever was referenced to look like the actor was somebody came up and they said, has anybody ever told you you look like that guy from Bosom Buddies? Well, Bosom Buddies was a TV show that aired for 2 years, and the premise of that show was that Tom Hanks and his co-star, they couldn't afford regular housing, so they ended up living in a woman's dorm, and they were cross-dressing in order to live there somehow, and maybe it was a college, I'm not even sure. I never even saw the show. But suddenly, instead of being Steve, I was the guy who looked like the guy from Bosom Buddies. And so that went on for 2 years. This is 1980, 1981 time frame.
And what were you doing? What were you doing in your real life as Steve?
I had just moved to California. I was born in Pennsylvania, and spent the first 22 years of my life there in Pennsylvania, and then I went to California, and so I'm out in California, and everybody, the first thing people say is, "Hey, you look like the guy from Bosom Buddies," and it's funny because at the beginning it was like, "Wow, that's great! I look like the guy from Bosom Buddies," but then after you've heard it about 100 times, you go, well, what good is this doing me? It's not doing anything. So then if you fast forward about 10 years, Tom Hanks' career was going very well. He kept making more movies, and he was really becoming a movie star at that point.
Yeah.
And
he's one of my favorites, in fact. I mean, there are other movies too. The Captain, wasn't it? Captain? Recent one. A captain on a a pirate
that's right.
A ship that was pirated.
That's right.
Yes.
The story of
Captain Phillips.
The story of the captain of a ocean liner, oil tanker that gets kidnapped by Somali pirates.
Yes.
And
exactly right.
But I kind of froze in time. I stopped in 1994 when Forrest Gump came out and became that, and so. But I want to tell you how in 1990, 91, 92, people kept saying, now they didn't say you look like the guy from Bosom Buddies, because now they knew his name. Back in the Bosom Buddies, nobody knew his name. It's like, have you ever been told you look like Tom Hanks? Has anybody ever said who you look like? Suzanne, I heard that thousands of times. And in fact, every time I would go out somewhere in public, it was going to happen. And because I'm a social guy and I'm out meeting people, and the next thing you know, somebody saying, you look like that guy. So this just kept going on, and what would happen is people would say, they would ask a series of questions, and it always got down to, have you ever thought of making any money off of that? The fact that I look like Tom Hanks. And so the short circuit, because I had heard this conversation so many times, you know who you look like? I'd say, I'm going to make some money off of this. Well, I didn't really think I was going to make money off of it. I just thought it was a way of ending the conversation. Now, if it was a pretty girl, I would allow her to go through all 6 of those questions to get to, have you ever thought of making any money off of it? I'd make her work harder. But a lot of times I would say, I'm going to make money off of this. Well, I must have over a couple-year period in the early 90s, late 80s, 90s, I would have said, I'm going to make some money off of this 1,000 or more times. It was just like one of those things that you have. Now, the story I tell today is about the feather, and I'm just going to introduce that.
Let's look and see what you have in your satchel here.
I just have I have a feather here, and I'm going to say, let me put that back up like that. I'm going to say that the feather appeared at my, let's see where we can put that where people can see it. The feather floated into my life And the feather was the fact that I looked like somebody. And in 1980, I originally picked it up, and I didn't know what to do with the feather. There was nothing to do with the feather. And so
this is a true story.
Yeah.
That the feather floated in. Where were you? Where were you physically? Were you at a park? This feather?
Oh, no. The story is it's a metaphor.
It's a metaphor.
The metaphor is that
in the movie a feather did fall.
That's right. And at the beginning of the movie Forrest Gump, the feather comes into his life. No, the feather was the fact that I looked like Tom Hanks. Right. And I didn't know what to do with that when it first happened. When it first came into my life, and there was nothing to do with it. I looked like the guy from Bosom Buddies. And then I started saying, well, I'm going to make some money off of this, not because I really wanted to make money off of it, because if people were going to eventually suggest that I make some money off of it. Right. So now it's 1995. The movie Forrest Gump had come out in July of 1994. And so now it's the following spring, winter, spring, it's February. And excuse me, I'm driving around in my car in California, and I'm working as a salesman. And I'm about to go on a sales call, and I hear on the radio a news story, and they're saying fried shrimp, barbecue shrimp, coconut shrimp, and they're saying, he's back, he's back. Forrest Gump is going to reappear, and I'm listening because, of course, I look like the actor, and I had played Forrest for Halloween that same year. I forgot to mention that part where I put the costume together, so I already had the costume. And they said they're going to open up a Bubba Gump Shrimp Company. Now, Bubba Gump was the first time that a fictitious brand from a movie became a real brand in real life. And so the story is that Paramount had this brand that people kept saying, hey, I want to buy a Bubba Gump hat. And they thought, well, geez, we have a brand here. So different groups of restaurants made a bid and proposed to create the Bubba Gump Shrimp Company. And one restaurant group, they became essentially the new owners of the Bubba Gump Shrimp Company, and they started the first restaurant in Monterey, California. I was living in San Jose at the time, and that was when the feather appeared, and I could do something with it. So now the feather wasn't just something that wasn't, it was useless. It was like you picked it up and you go, well, great, you look like the guy, but what do you do with it? Well, now it's like, oh, I know what to do. And I had said, Suzanne, 1,000 times, I'm going to make some money off of this, not really thinking I was.
Right, just to get people off your back.
Exactly.
Right.
And so I knew at that moment that the feather I needed to pick it up, and I said I had the Halloween costume sitting in my closet, so I said I have to call these folks, and so I did. I called them up and I arranged an interview, and I went down a few days later, and I met them in Monterey where they were opening the restaurant, and they were practicing. They hadn't opened to the public, and the restaurant was filled with people in there. And when I walked in, there was applause, and the place was so excited to see Forrest. And I walked around and I gave chocolates to everybody at the tables. And I had my suitcase, and I was just saying silly things. That life's like a box of chocolates. Stupid is as stupid does. And I just had fun talking to people. And then what happened was I did something kind of smart. I showed my first Gumption, and I had Gumption when I called them up and set the interview. Did. And then I showed some Gumption when I walked in, because in my suitcase that time I had 3 pieces of paper, and the first piece of paper said you could hire me for the grand opening, and the second piece of paper said you're going to open 17 more restaurants over the next couple of years. You could hire me for those grand openings. And then the third piece of paper said you could hire me to work on weekends right here at this location. And they ended up doing all 3 of those. Of course, it happened one step at a time. But then for the next 15 years, I worked for Bubba Gump and opened 22 restaurant locations in the United States, and I participated in 8 of 11 international openings. And so I was not only working for Bubba Gump in Monterey and San Francisco, which were the first and second stores, close to right where I lived. But then I ended up helping to open up the other locations. And I would go to the city. They'd have a PR team, and I do different radio and television appearances, and promote the restaurant, go visit hotels locally and let them know that we're opening up, and that went on for 15 years. That was a pretty lucky feather that came and landed at my
it's
feet.
It's a lucky and a rarefied feather.
Yeah.
You have led a rarefied life. I
Yeah.
mean, what an unusual 15 years to participate and to take on a fictional character and to become that character and to have people see you as that character.
Yeah.
I mean, I've often thought that actors, live in two worlds: their own world and the world that's created for them by a script. But you really didn't even have a script. You had to create your own script and sort of become that character for a long time. Did it ever get confusing to you? Did it impact who you were?
That's a great question, and I was asked that all the time, and I never felt confused by it. I always felt that I was pretty clear who Steve was and the role that I was playing, and so I kind of looked at it like a job, and I ended up working essentially 3 days a week, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, in either San Francisco or Monterey from 12 to 5, and I would sit on the bench and talk to people. And Bubba Gump was great. The owners of the business, they gave me a lot of leeway in how I did what I did. Now, they did coach me, and I had quite a bit of help at the beginning to settle into how it would work best. But essentially, I was able to invent what I did, and with just a little bit of guidance and making sure that I was representing the best interest of Paramount,
Sure.
The character, the brand, and then also the Bubba Gump restaurant. They let me just go out there and have fun with people. And so I like to joke about it to other people. I said my job was to sit on my buttocks and act dumb for many hours. And when I tell people that in the corporate world now, they say, well, that's what my job is. I have to sit on my buttocks and act dumb. Of course, we're having fun with that and teasing.
But in some ways, that's a complete misrepresentation of what Forrest Gump was about, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, Forrest Gump really resonated with a lot of people.
Yeah.
And since meeting you, I went back and started looking at some of the clips from the movies, and I wondered why he became such an important character. Why was that such a blockbuster movie? Because it certainly wasn't action-packed. It was, it wasn't romantic. At some levels it was. But there was, for me, I came away thinking there was a simplicity and a beauty in who this person was. And in his mother's encouragement, that the story itself resonated with everyone, because it seemed like everybody in their lives has challenges of one sort or another. And the way that they created Forrest Gump is he didn't know that it was a challenge. He just did it.
Yeah.
And there's such a good story in all of that.
Yeah, Forrest, he had a difficult childhood. He came from there was no Mr. Gump. He was on vacation.
Right.
The boy Forrest asked Mama, "What's vacation mean? Where Daddy went?" Mama says that's when you go somewhere and you never come back. Well, that's how she's explaining she's explaining something that has no explanation to a young boy.
Right.
And Forrest says, Mom had a way of explaining things so I could understand them. And it was that simplistic thing. So there was a certain, Forrest was not born to privilege.
Right.
He was born a very ordinary, poor life,
with a simple mind.
And he didn't have, mentally he was right on the edge of his intellect was not that sharp, and yet he, with the encouragement of his mother,
Right.
he learned what was right, what was wrong.
Right.
He learned how to trust those that you love. He had the love of his mother, that was so important. And so when other kids were mean to him and threw the rocks at him, you know, he came home to a safe place, and he ended up thriving. And he
knew how to love.
And he knew how to love.
He knew how to love, and he knew how to give it away freely.
Yes.
And I think that's a big part of his story, is that he had no guile. He had a simple gift to give to the world. Yeah. So I want to tell people how I met you, Steve. This last April, I think it was. Every year, the Division of Tourism here in Montana holds a conference. And I went because I wanted people to know about what we were doing with our Days at Dunrovin community. And the first evening, they had a costume party. I did not go in costume, by the way, because I have to admit it, I didn't do my homework. I didn't realize it was a costume party, or I certainly would have been happy to wear a costume. Anyway, I just showed up. And I think you were either in front of me or beside me in line at one point. And you were very definitely in character. And he was doing at that event exactly what you must have been doing when you worked for the Bubba Shrimp Company.
Right.
He was going from table to table, and he had people eating out of the palm of your hand and out of your box of chocolates.
Yes. It's easier to make friends, Suzanne, when you have chocolates to give out.
Well, I just couldn't get over how much gumption you had to go up to complete strangers and feel so at ease and make them feel so at ease. And I think that's really your gift, is that, you know, you bring an air of fun and congeniality to the party.
It gives permission to people to let their hair down.
It does.
In a social environment, in a business environment, everybody's on guard, and the Gump character allows people to relax and smile and have fun.
Yes.
And of course I'm having fun. So it's of course that's work for me to do that, but it's fun. It's not. It doesn't feel like work.
So you're a boy from Pennsylvania.
Yes.
Who spent 15 years more than 15 years in California. We were living in San Jose when Gump discovered you, when your feather flew into your life.
Right.
And you're now in Montana.
Yes.
And how did all of this happen?
Yeah. Well, I was still working for Bubba Gump, and it was initially 2002, and I knew that I was going to leave California. I was living in the Bay Area, and I had been doing this unorthodox job for a while, and I just had decided that my life was going to be unorthodox. It wasn't going to follow a traditional pattern and role, and that was just who I had always been in many ways. And I tried different corporate jobs, and I fit in, but you know, suddenly I had this fun job, and so I knew that the next chapter of my life was going to be somewhere out of California. I liked the mountains, and so at any rate, I ended up taking a trip in 2002 to Montana, and I basically discovered the Bitterroot Valley, which is right where we both live. And I looked a few other places. I looked up at Kalispell and in Missoula itself, and I looked over in northern Idaho and Coeur d'Alene area, and they were all wonderful spots and all had something special to offer. But for whatever reason, the Bitterroot Valley called to me when I was here, and it just felt like my home.
Are you Dunrovin?
I am Dunrovin. I think I've settled. Yeah. Now we'll get to this later, but I still will do quite a bit of roaming, but I consider this my home, and I believe this will always be my home for the final chapter of my life. I plan to make Montana and my little ranch and about 40 miles south of here my primary residence. So I just love it here.
Well, we love having you here.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now you are a speaker and a convention host. Is that not correct? A motivational speaker and a convention host. Can you tell me the difference between those two?
Yeah. So what happened was, as my role with Bubba Gump was winding down, I thought, how do I continue the fact that I still have a resemblance to the actor, and it brings joy and lightness to people. People love it. So I had a gift, and I worked for Bubba Gump for 15 years, or at least 10 years full time, and I thought, what do I do next? How am I going to continue to do this? And I knew that eventually the run with Bubba Gump was going to come to an end. So I was like, what do I do next in my life? And so another feather came into my life. I was at a TV studio one day. I'm going to go promote a run that Bubba Gump was involved with, and there was a man there, and he told me he was a professional speaker. And I said, really? And he gave me a copy of his book, and that planted the seed that, wow, people, you can make a living going out and talking to people. And so I thought I could tell the story of Forrest Gump and my own story, and I wasn't sure what I could tell, but I knew that with the character I would. So I began that quest, and that was 2005. I began the quest of then reinventing myself as a speaker. Well, long story short, it took a couple of years until I really decided to do it. It was like 2009 when I launched myself as a speaker. And then for the next 5 years, up until really the beginning of last year, 2014, I was a guy who was trying to figure out my message. I was developing my message. I was learning to be a speaker. I knew how to sit on the bench and interact with people, and I knew how to work into a group full of people and make them laugh and smile and have a good time. But I didn't know how to stand up on the stage, a platform, and speak to them with a message that meant something. When I first started, I was kind of like a comedian, where I would just tell jokes and use the same lines I had used, and that was entertaining, but it wasn't filling. It wasn't that message that people need, and that I knew I wanted to share. So it took a couple years to development. Now the funny thing, you asked about the speaking and conference host. We call it conference host.
Right. And they are different roles, are they not?
Absolutely. So what happened as my message got closer, I kept thinking, well, maybe I could be a conference host in addition to being a speaker. And so this idea of conference host emerged. It was another feather that just showed up one day, and you pick it up and you're not quite sure what it means, and you feel like it's something, but you're not quite sure how to use it. So I ended up inventing the role of conference host. And what the conference host is I'm there, a corporate or some type of business conference, 3 days. I'm there all 3 days. I'm greeting people when they walk in the door and signing up and getting their badges. I'm the very first day of meetings, I'm going to do some kind of a little, shtick and light humorous thing from the platform. And then I'm going to be there, and I'm going to stay in character for the first, day or so. And I'm just talking to people, and they're like, who in the heck is this guy? Kind of like what we did at the beginning.
Yes.
And then on day 2, I'll do my keynote, and I talk to people, and I tell them the message of gumption and personal responsibility. And then as the conference continues, I can do some other things like skits with the CEO, or a man on the street interview where a TV camera follows me around and we do little interviews, kind of like this. Only people tell what they're talking about, what the conference is going.
See, you're giving me an idea.
Oh, good.
I think you should go on one of our horseback rides.
Oh my! I don't have to run. Let's not let the horses run.
Wouldn't it be fun to have? We do corporate parties sometimes.
Well, we'll make that happen someday.
We have to make that happen.
Yeah,
that would be a lot of fun. Forrest Gump in cowboy gear.
Yeah, why not?
Why not?
I'll wear my white suit, but we'll put some cowboy boots
and a cowboy hat.
That's right.
I think we're onto something.
So that's really that's what the conference host does. Is the conference host interacts with people, whether they're going for a horseback ride or whether they're they're having an outing somewhere, and I'm just there talking to people and having a good time and helping and giving people permission to relax and enjoy themselves. And so just to wrap up the conference host and the speaking, I spent about 5 years developing my message of gumption, and when that finally all came together, and I was real confident with it, I went, well, I don't even want to be a speaker. I want to interact with people a lot more. So the speaking is a very important piece of what I do, but the conference host is all 3 days of interacting, lots of fun, lots of humor, but then also an inspirational message from the stage too. So that's the difference.
So if I understand correctly, what Steve is doing is he's developing a business that he's calling Gumption.
Yes.
And living with Gumption.
Live your life with Gumption.
Live your life with Gumption. And I love that.
Yeah.
Because first of all, that speaks to me personally. I really think that if you have some positive energy into your life and you basically take control of your life and you put yourself out there, that good things come to you. You know, that I assume that's some part of the message. I mean, gumption to me means taking the nerve, having the will and the determination
That's right.
to move forward.
Fortitude and determination combined with initiative. Yeah. And Forrest in his life, he lived that way. He was a guy who was fearless because he didn't know any differently.
Yes.
And he went and did things, and that led to coincidences that it was a little over the top in the movie,
right.
But that's really the way real life works, Suzanne, is that you take initiative and suddenly something happens. So when I called up Bubba Gump and said, hey,
right.
You're not going to believe who I look like. And when you put the camera up at the osprey nest, you didn't know what was going to happen, but you took that initiative. It took gumption to get up there and put a camera on the birds. And look what you've created, the community, and people around the world are now seeing this because they appreciate that extra effort that you did. And everybody needs that. And so my idea with Gumption is to share some of the simple themes from the movie along with some of the things that I've learned in my life and encourage people to keep changing and growing and keep living.
Living with gumption at any age.
Yeah, because it never stops.
Yes.
Forrest's life was chapter after chapter after chapter. He was a football player, then he was in the Army as a soldier, then because he was shot in the buttocks, he became a ping pong player because a ping pong ball just happened to accidentally hit him in the head. And then he became a champion ping pong player because he had great intensity and was able to focus on and practice. And then he gets out of the Army and he goes and becomes a shrimp boat captain because of Bubba's encouragement. Bubba didn't make it alive out of Vietnam, but Bubba's dream did,
yes.
and Forrest carried that dream. And then he went and became a shrimp boat captain, and he had all this struggles at the beginning. He was catching, he wasn't catching anything, but trash and just trash on the bottom of the ocean. And so anyway, then he finally, Lieutenant Dan comes back into his life, and he finally has success. But it was after another tragedy where the shrimp boats in a hurricane hits, and so suddenly his boat was the only boat left, and of course it was easy to shrimp when there wasn't much there.
Competition, yeah.
And then he became a gazillionaire because Lieutenant Dan invested some of his money in the fruit company. Well, what was the fruit company? It was Apple Computer. Now we all have an iPhone or an iPad, and so there was all these references to this magical life that he lived. But I believe that our lives can be magical if we take the initiative, if we live with gumption. You were minding your own business with a nice little ranch here and some horses, and some guests came, and then you put a camera on the osprey nest, and everything changed.
Yes,
and
all for the good.
And it always keeps changing.
Yeah.
And the weather came in today, and it changed. So now we're in the Lewis room. We're not. We're no longer we're not on the porch swing.
That's right.
But I hope you'll invite me back.
I'm going to have you back. I'm going to have you back on the porch swing with a campfire.
That sounds great.
Yes, it's going to be great. I can't thank you enough for coming. And I really want you to stay engaged with our community because I think your message resonates. Many of us who are engaged in this community are you know, let me just say we're getting a little long in the tooth.
Mhm.
And grateful for it, frankly.
Mhm.
I mean, I'd
Yeah.
rather get long in the tooth than be short in the tooth.
That's right. That's right.
So I think that all of us face new challenges, you know, health issues and, you know, friends leaving and children leaving and all of those life changes. And then, you know, these final chapters of our lives it's about letting go of things, saying
Yeah.
goodbye in many ways. And yet I think that they also can be some of the richest parts of our life
Mhm.
if we're ready to embrace them. And I think you can help us do that.
Well, I would like to, and I think the message I'd like to leave today is that there's feathers that still come into your life, no matter what age or where you are, and each feather, it's like almost by magic that it just floats in. But if you recognize and you look for these feathers, they are magical and they're opportunities, and they give you a chance to try something new. And it's a little bit scary to pick up the feathers. The other thing is you have to let go of a feather that you're holding on to if you're going to pick up something else, because you can't walk around with a fistful of feathers. You really only need one or two or three at the same time. So sometimes we hold on to feathers for way too long. And when I told you that and I'll share this at a future time, I told you about my keynote coming together a year ago. It was because I had held on to some feathers for too long. And when I finally let go of some of the things some of the stories, some of the things I was holding on to, suddenly my life changed, because I could pick up. I let go of things that I thought I needed to be holding, and I picked up something new, which was scary to pick up, and suddenly everything changed. And no matter where we are in life, we can continue to learn and we can continue to grow.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so very much. I really appreciate your
You're
coming,
welcome,
and we
Susan.
will have you back
That would be
many
wonderful.
times. We want to incorporate you into our community.
I would love to. And since I'm part of I'm your neighbor.
You're my neighbor.
It's not too far for me to run.
Yes, to run. We're going to get you 4 legs to use.
There you go. I would love that. And I think what I just love what you're doing here, and I love the community you're building, and I'm honored to become part of it. And I hope that I get to know some of the
You
members.
will. We're going to get him on chat. You're going to be able to talk to Steve. He has an incredibly interesting, fascinating story, and just a really beautiful outlook on life. Thank you for sharing it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mackenzie, for helping with the technology, and we're going to wave goodbye. Thank you all for joining us, and I think you will all agree that Mystery Man was well worth waiting for. Thank you.
And that's all we have to say about
that. Thanks a lot. All right, tell me when we're off, Mackenzie. Does he ride? Celia wants to know, do you ride?
I've not ridden for a few years, but as long as it's I know how to sit and hold on to a horse.
We'll do it on a live stream camera. We're going to get Forrest out here riding. We'll tell you when.
Good.
Yeah, that'll be fun. Okay, everybody's saying thank you. They're waving goodbye. Bye and thank you. Cool. Well worth the wait.
Surprise, surprise, surprise.
This is great. This is really fun. I'm sorry about the rain. It would be nicer with our regular camera, but we will next time.
We will, and we'll do.
Yeah. And I do think it would be wonderful to have you come out and ride.
Great.
And I'm also thinking you and I should go to the conference centers.
Mm-hmm.
And we do what's called a Taste of Montana events, and bring people out here to do Western line dancing. We have barbecues. We have, it's a meet and greet sort of thing. Are we off then, Mackenzie? Are we off, Mackenzie?
Yeah.
Thank you.
How long did we go? What time is it?
40. We went 40 minutes.
Good.
And that's exactly right.
That's what you wanted to do.
That's exactly what. Yeah. Anything more than that, and it gets hard.
Yeah.
People have you're looking at a screen.
Yeah.
A small screen oftentimes.
Yeah.
Um, at any rate, I think if you're at all interested, we should do something like this.
Mhm.
You know, I think it would be really fun and would have a lot of pizzazz if Forrest Gump were involved in that. So if you want to put something together, let me know.
Great.
Yeah, I mean, I had a group of 200 out here one time, and it was the National Conference of Weights and Measures,
Mm-hmm.
and they spent the whole day
Mhm.
went on horseback rides and did dancing,
Mhm.
and I think your the whole concept of a conference host or an event host is just fabulous.
Yeah. It's so funny because I worked so hard to be a speaker, and then the minute I accomplished that piece of it, or the minute that piece was like now finally